when you talk about classified information, a big part of what makes it classified is that it cannot be released to the public, either because of how the public will react or because of how your enemies or how your enemies, for lack of a better word, would be able to, what they'd be able to learn from you from that information, right? So there's two reasons why you don't release that information. You don't know how the public's going to react, and you also don't want any of your enemies to get access to the information that you have. I think the big turning point happened, at least it happened for me, in 2021, when the Office of the Director of National Intelligence had to create an assessment on UAPs and UFOs for the Congress. Prior to that, like, it had always been a big question mark. Did CIA ever actually participate in any of this stuff, right? It was a question mark. Nobody knew.
It's them. Yeah.
Well, then, after that report was released, after that assessment was released to Congress, there were tranches of documents that were declassified that were previously classified. Why were they classified? Either because of what the public would do with them or with what our enemies would do with them, right? That's why they were classified before. Now they're declassified. And they're clearly CIA documents, DOD documents, FBI documents, NSA documents going back as far as the 1970s and before, talking about collection efforts from China and from Russia and from all over Europe, French and German collection, looking into UAPs and UFOs. That means the governments were spending real money to collect these secrets. Our government was spending real money collecting and classifying these secrets. And that all was released to the public in 2021 through that first tranche of reporting for the UAP task force. And now there's only more of an appetite from Congress to continue to dig into that. They're concerned because they want to make sure the skies above our country are safe. Safe for commercial airlines, safe for national security reasons, et cetera, et cetera. But that doesn't negate the fact that there was real classified information about research into these topics that we were never made privy to. I understand how significant something has to be to classify it and keep it a secret. So the fact that money and time and trained officers went into that collection effort for 50 years makes me that much more interested in being one of those officers that gets a chance to research it and collect it now.
In your career, did you ever have access to, let's say, government secrets that were so big that humanity could never find out about it?
Humanity is too big of a word. So I would say I have never had access to anything that would impact humanity. I have absolutely had access to secrets that would impact how the American public would respond.
What do you mean by that?
Meaning the roles that I filled, the operations that I partook or that I participated in were operations that were relevant and impactful to Americans. They were relevant and impactful to other countries as well, but never humanity as a whole, right?
Meaning it could change the narrative on how Americans view certain foreign conflicts in the world if they found out about it.
Correct. Okay. So as an example, Henry Kissinger, who was a famous politician under Nixon, the man who kind of brokered diplomacy between the United States and China, communist China, after Mao Zedong took over.
Yeah, how's that working out?
Yeah. But Henry Kissinger is still alive. He's like 101 years old, I think, this year.
Fucking guy won't die.
And he just did an interview for The Economist, a UK-based newspaper, a UK-based news source. And in that news report, in that interview that he did, he very openly discussed how the best path forward for the United States and China is for both countries to start a systematic approach of lying to their people.
He said this publicly.
Yeah, he said that in the interview. That what should happen is the United States and China should create secret advisory panels that coordinate with each other to deconflict and de-escalate the conflict. But at the same time, public-facing advisors should continue the same narrative and tell the people whatever they have been telling them for the last 15 years, so that you could essentially you could protect and insulate the governments from looking like they're changing their approach to each other. So then public outrage doesn't happen, but you also have a way of avoiding immediate conflict. The reason I say this is not because I think Henry Kissinger is wrong or I don't think he's evil, but I do think that what happened is in a moment of unique transparency.
Yeah, that's one way to put it.
A trained diplomat has now told publicly, even though it was just in one article and in one news source, but it's cited to Henry Kissinger. He's basically shared that that is how governments work. They will lie to their people. There is strategic value in governments lying to their people because they want to keep the people calm. They want to keep the people controlled. They want to keep the people satisfied, even though they know that they have to find a way to get real answers and real progress made in issues of conflict.
What he's talking about right there, at least the way I hear that, is that whole keeping the public on a certain narrative. I think you use the word so that they don't. You might have not said uprise, but they don't freak out or something like that. It implies that this is a way to make sure that powerful politicians are able to keep their roles.
Correct.
Just like your friend, the Congress lady, who said, "I'm not going to go and talk about term limits up there. I don't want to do that." And you're like, "What? You just asked me what I want you to do." Like, people didn't hear that story, but like, that's what happens. And it seems like a guy. I mean, that guy's a fucking living fossil, and he's still, relevant as hell. If that doesn't show you that people hold on to powerful positions and staying power over maybe even the overall good, because like what he's saying is he's trying to to give him some credit here, he's trying to promote hey, let's not actually let's chill, let's not fight.
Right.
But the way he's doing it is not the simple way of just coming out and saying, "Yo, guys, let's not fight," and not worry about how the voters then vote.
Right.
He's doing it by trying to protect how the voters then vote. Yeah. So he's doing it underhanded.
And how Chinese nationals interpret their relationship with Xi Jinping as well. Because he's saying both countries should maintain the status quo and maintain the public narrative that they've set forth so that neither country looks like it's backing down from the other country, right? He wants both China and the United States to continue looking strong in the eyes of their own people. But that's just the public-facing narrative. In actuality, they would have secret advisory boards that work together, similar to what happened in the Cuban Missile Crisis, to de-escalate and avoid future conflict. This is wise diplomacy. Excuse me.
You good? You need some water? We're making them sweat over there. Making the spy sweat.
Too much talking.
It's okay. That's what you're here for.
This is wise diplomacy, but it's not what people are used to anticipating or what people... It's a validation of the suspicion that people have about the way government controls information.
Yeah, because you had said that before when we had talked, talking about why you left the CIA and stuff. I think it had something to do with they lie because they have to, and that you were like, that's why I left. But at the same time, to be honest, what did you expect?
Yeah, I didn't leave because CIA lied. I left for personal reasons. I left because they wanted me essentially to choose my service with CIA above my family.
Yes, there was that, but there was the other side to it that you had talked about.
Right. And then when I got out, I realized that the same techniques they taught us to manipulate our targets and our assets was the same technique that they were using to motivate us through our career as well.
There it is. Okay.
Right. And
now we're on track.
And then I realized I was being lied to and I was being manipulated, just like I was trained to lie to and manipulate assets. And that didn't feel good. Regardless, that was just validation after I left that it was a good idea to leave.
Got you.
But the point is still the same, right? There are huge groups of people in the United States that believe the government is actively lying to them, that believe information is intentionally being withheld from them, and that believe that they should be told in full transparency what's happening.
And that's where they're wrong. I understand that, yes.
Correct, and that's where they're wrong, right? The fact that we have individual rights to privacy, right? Every American has a right to privacy, means you have a right to keep your secrets. We have to understand that the government has the right to keep its own secrets too. Just because you are an American doesn't mean the government has to be honest or open or transparent with you, right? Part of the trade-off in this relationship is that you trust the government and they protect you. That's kind of how it works. And that's frankly how it should work, because the last thing I want is to have my government paralyzed because the 180 million adults in the United States can't reach a consensus on what they want the government to do. I kind of like the fact that we're a representative republic, even though for all the flaws and for all the challenges that we have, we're way better off than some of the authoritarian countries out there.